Hello everyone. Today we will discuss about conflict management and various resolution techniques. When I say various, this means both positive and negative techniques. But before we need to understand what exactly is conflict. Let me give you certain pointers to exactly how we define conflict when we come in collision or in disagreement, or when we are in contradictory with one another, at variance at one another, or probably in opposition or in a clash. Conflict means to fight, to contend, or probably we are in a battle. A battle, probably in terms of a prolonged struggle or strife. Conflict is often synonymous with controversies, quarrel, and between parties discord of action, feelings, and effect, both in terms of opposition or antagonism. As of areas of interest, principles of ideas, we are in conflicting with one another, are striking together, or we are moving in the path of collision. So, what doesn't work? Number one, yelling, shouting at one another, refusing to change, or probably come to a compromise is what doesn't work. We often hit out names, we give out calling of them, and probably belittling one another. So, how do we resolve conflict? What does work for it? Best way is to negotiate, mediate, and probably look from both point of views, your point of view and your opposition point of view, and then probably work out a win-win attitude or win-win solution for both of us. We'll talk about what when is conflict positive. Is conflict always bad? I don't think so. So, when is it positive? When we are able to resolve internal and interpersonal conflict using a win-win problem solution. So, every relationships have some conflict at some point of time. When we use win-win problem, it strengthens the relationship. When we don't, it destroys us. A conflict which helps you to evolve into a better person is a positive reasons for being the conflict to be in there. It helps you to enrich yourself, probably encourage yourself to the idea of understanding different of you. Now we'll discuss who owns the problem. The person who is negatively affected by the problem, is that person owner of the problem, or what is the responsibilities of owners to find a way to resolve the problem, even if he or she is not the reason behind it, behind the conflict. So please understand, we need to define the problem and under whose hands or jurisdiction the solution can rise upon it. So we'll look after a win-win solution. The best solution would always be win-win. The best way to come to a win-win solution is to use the power judiciously. There are three responses of conflict. First one, you like to fight the situation as if you are no way inferior to the situation or the opponent. The other one would be that response of flight, or should I say avoid. You don't fight the situation, you simply run away. You take the shortest way out of the situation. Basically, what I'm referring is avoiding the situation. The third response is to be a very obedient response. You meek out, you get yourself muted, and probably you agree that whatever the opponent party is looking at or hinting at a solution, you basically follow that diktat. So we need to identify each other's needs and goals to arrive to a win-win solution. Mind you, fight, flight, or obedience may be the three responses, but not always the right responses together. So all relationship, be it personal, be it professional, experience some kind of conflict at one point of time. What are the various kind of relation that we have? We have a normal relationship. Normal relationship or any formal relationship. We come in an organization, in a company settings as an employer-employee, boss and subordinate, supervisor and managers, directors and president, and etc etc. And then there are something called natural relationship. Natural relationship are born by birth, by bloodline. Probably your family is a natural relationship that you are born into. Sometimes, for development of growth and for growth, you actually experience a conflict in either of your normal or natural relationship. So let us discuss some ways to manage the conflict. Negative styles of conflict: firecracker. Now blow up a certain anger, usually apologize. You know it, it will happen again. So this is one of the six negative styles of conflict. You basically burst out. Cold shoulders. Two people who often take pride in not communicating with one another. They actually avoid each other. They actually ignore the existence of the other person. Contest to see who can hold the longest. Often it happens at a very intimate relationships too. Backstabbing. Positive on your face and probably hitting out behind your back. So that is what a backstabbing is all about. We come to the fourth style of negative style of conflict is social zinger. Probably this is the person or these are the elements who basically mock at you when confronted, throw a verbal dart in front of others, probably belittling you. And when confronted, they will just say that I was just testing you, I was teasing you, it was a casual throwback, and so on and so forth. Then we have got the trivia fights. Those who battle over little things fight over details. Seldom, believe me or not, they are into serious issues. Probably these are only minuscule things. A glorifying example would be your siblings, what you have with your siblings when you were younger, at the younger days. Having the last word. This is the negative style of conflict where ego is predominant. You must to have a last remark. Conflict is never over. In such things where ego plays the majority of a role, conflict doesn't goes into an doesn't resolve on itself. So we'll discuss the various ingredients of conflict. Probably in the next two slides, we'll talk about why there are conflicts and what are the reasons why your opinion probably doesn't matches with your opponent's opinion. Prime reason is diversity. Diversity, people who think differently than what you do or what I do. Why do people do things differently? Because they belong to different cultures. They don't have social similarity. Probably they come from upper echelon of the society and somebody from the middle echelon of the society. The way you want to put through. Then there is something called differences. Probably all of us are not built in a identical fashion. We all have a do's and don'ts. We all have a liking and disliking. And that what differences is all about it. Ways that we prefer to act and behave. We have the concerns of needs, ignoring the other party needs, or probably prioritizing your need over anybody else. Confused, there is a confusion between what is desirable and what is the requirement, the needs. So this also leads to conflict. And then we come to the next ingredient: perception. There is it, self perception. What was the word? The word is called ego. We always think our pain is the biggest pain in the world, our problem is the worst problem in the world, I am going through the severe acrimonious situation. Self perception, it might be negating. Self perception, it might be superfluous altogether. Perception of the other party, again it's just opposite of yours. And perception of your threats. So this actually plays another vital ingredient for conflict. Then the uh, talking about power. Now all of us, believe me or not, all of us are power hungry. We would love to rule the world, so wanting to control the behaviors in others. And then comes inflexibility, wherein I think it's my way or the highway. I am not ready to accommodate any of your just demand or just request. We'll talk about generations. I would love to do, for the purpose of this particular presentation, we will talk about generations in the subsequent 3, 4, 5 slides to understand how conflict arises altogether. Now, sources of organization conflict. The sources of organization conflict, Basically, we will talk about changes, conflicting goals and objective, limited resources, and the domino effect. Now, these are various sources of uh, organizational conflict that comes around it, the change. Now, I was talking about the generation. You'll see in a company, in an organization, there are people who are millennials and then there are people who are Gen Ys. Now, based upon them, there are differences of opinion about how to get those things done. So this needs to be understood. There is what the change is all about it. Every generation has their own modus operandi, conflicting goals, conflicting objectives. People, millennials would love to have issue a memo, issue a note, dictate a note, whereas the millennials would love to write it down on their social network or probably shoot a mail altogether to get things done. And this relates to other various amenities, domino effect. Now, how do we manage conflict? There are 5 ways to manage conflict. I will discuss in the subsequent 5 slides the ways to manage conflict. Number one is competition. Now, what is competition? Is unilateral decision making, wherein you utilize your power probably and decipher the situation as per your requirement. So, decisive action takes place, emergency situation can be handled, implementing unpopular change, and when all other methods fail, I believe competition is the best method to go around it. In fact, the world is based on capitalistic society. What is capitalistic society? Is all about competition, survival of the fittest. That about it. We come to the next method of conflict, that is known as accommodation. More often than not, allowing the other side to win. Absolutely, yes. Allowing at times give them a leg room so that the other side feels a little bit ambivalent and little bit comfortable in the situation. So preserving the relationship vis-a-vis arguing the issue. So you give a priority in preserving the relationship. Often we have seen, if we want to accommodate the other gentleman or the opponent party, we are more interested in having the relationship on a stronger footing vis-a-vis winning on a particular situation when the issue is more important to the other person, not you. Remember, when you want others to express their own point of views, absolutely yes, giving them a foothold or probably helping them out to understand their thought process. When you want others to learn by their own choices, when did I say their thought process, probably you are trying them or experimenting them whether they will come out victorious or will they will falter because of their situation or choices that we go around it. So this is all about accommodation. The third aspect would be of avoidance, decision to not handle. If others can resolve conflict more effectively, if both parties can seize the issues as minor, probably ignorant thing, if additional time is required, probably we can avoid the situation or we can defer the situation for the time being if both parties need cooling off period. So how many methods of conflict we have been talking around it? Three: competition, accommodation, and avoidance. I will come to the fourth ways of managing conflict, that is of compromise. Now herein you lose some and you win some, so both of the parties, confronting parties, have some brownie points to take home to reach to an agreement when both sides have equal power, to find common grounds when both parties have competing goals, to achieve temporary settlement on a very complex issues, and to reach a solution due to time pressures. And this is where we come to compromise. We are giving some of our areas, some of our requirements. In the process, we are gaining trust of the other fellow. So there is a win-win situation for both parties, as this particular conflict is the best method to do so till now. But the best has been saved for the last one, is collaboration through team input. Now, basically, it means merging everybody's point of view from different, no matter how different the backgrounds or different the opinions are, and come up with a creative solution, looking for a solution where there may not be much conflict, the best thing that can come around it. So how many ways to manage conflict? I have said it to you. I can recall as competition one, second one was accommodation, third one was avoidance, fourth one was compromise, and fifth one was collaborate. So that these five things, if these are the five methods, we can avoid any or probably resolve all conflicts altogether at any given point of time. Best way of conflict resolution would be to communicate, communicate, and communicate. If there are no communications, the conflict will never be resolved. It will always get deferred. Probably the conflicting issues will only get bigger and darker. So, how do we resolve? There are three W's that we need to understand. First W stands for who. Always communicate with the key person. Please don't communicate for the fringe players. Always communicate with the person who has the maximum authority, maximum jurisdiction. Then is W stands for when. Best method to resolve conflict is to solve it within 24 hours. That doesn't mean that immediately the conflict or the issue has been raised, you should beat bush around it. Let it cool it off. And probably in 24 hours, within a day, prepare your thoughts and then come and sit together. Where will you sit is the third W. Where will you sit? Always choose a neutral location, a location where both the opposing parties are neutral too. Nobody has got an upper hand altogether. So three W's are who, when, and where. The first and the foremost thing in conflict is to resolve conflict with listening. God knows why everybody starts shouting, everybody starts abusing, everybody does not wants to listen to the other party. Now this is where the problem is all about it. And the solution, very simple solution would be to listen. Basic acknowledgement, be non-verbal responses. Use silence. We are better speakers than listener. Use silence to get response. Even not speaking or remaining silent is another form of response. Question is, it tells the speaker once you start listening, the opponent party automatically gets calmer, thinking the fact that you are paying attention to his or her agony, his or her pain points. It says you want more. You are interested in resolving the issues altogether. This is what is most importantly. Listen, listen, listen. The first word did I say is communicate, communicate, communicate. That means never stop the communication bridge, because then the conflict issues will only get bigger and darker. Whereas the second step would be to listen to the pain points of your opponent altogether. So first thing and best thing, after you've listened to the opponent's or opposing party's viewpoint, try to paraphrase them. How do you paraphrase them? Whatever they have said and whatever your understanding is all about it. Once you paraphrase it, it will verify the content and the speaker will come to know whether his idea has been translated or transferred into your brain. The speaker will indicate if there is anything called has been misunderstood. They will ask you to repeat or they will clarify themselves what is to be done. But remember, do not use paraphrasing more often than required. So never ever overuse paraphrasing. Only paraphrase the major controversial issues that comes around it. We'll talk about controversial issues. So we'll talk about constructive criticism and destructive criticism. Best method of doing constructive criticism is to apply it on performance that requires improvement. The issues that needs to be resolved, we need to talk about them. Focus on the issue and not on the person or the group of things. We at times it has been noticed that during a conflict we slowly and decisively shift the issues from the situation to the person involved into it. This is a strong strict no, no, no. So plan ahead. Always handle everything carefully. Sandwich method. I suppose when you have got something negative to be said, please polish it off. Polish your negative thoughts, your arguments with certain positive attributes. That is what the sandwich method is all about yet. You have to put the negative viewpoints, definitely, but not using very harsher sentences, words, dictums. Probably if you can sandwich it with some good attributes of the opponent party or the issues that can come around it. Last but not the least, you need to understand the performance appraisal, because performance counts in an organizational settings. We don't want dysfunctional teams, we want functional teams, and performance matters a lot. So what is destructive criticism? Now this is intentionally used, and probably it is more vulgar. It is more person specific rather than the issues. Believe me, in the constructive criticism, it was the issue that needs to be stressed upon and not the person or the people involved into it. In destructive criticism, it is the person specific and not the behavior that needs to be gone around it. You need to identify what causes conflict and who causes conflict. Commonly, very commonly used in politics, usually a result of an anger is what destructive criticism. It is at the heat of the moment, the way we react, the way we conduct ourselves leads to a much situation that goes around it. Please remember, we are all built differently, so we should always agree to disagree. Maintain professionalism. Give equal access to the common ground. Know when to seek a facilitators or bring in a mediator, a third party, a negotiator. When the conflict is going out of your hand, you should decide upon the boundaries. Yes, this is the right time when we can go around it. First and the foremost thing, always use the I message. Whenever you're talking, personalize it. Say, I have done this, or my thought process was like this. Rather, and always use reflecting listening. So you need to understand what the other opponent party have said. You paraphrase it. You paraphrase it with the word called I. Never, I repeat, always use the word I in your statement, and never, should I repeat, never use the word with statement you. Do not blame the fellow. Do not point the finger at the opponent parties altogether. So, results of a win-win situation is often more creative in thinking of solution. Very important. You need to be very creative in coming out with a solution. Take more responsibilities for helping everyone have their needs met. Have a sense of respect for each other's. This is a determining factor. If that element of respect vanishes, probably the conflict situation become more complex. Love grows deeper. Believe me, once there is a conflict and it has been successfully resolved, there is a ever growing respect for the opposite party. With this, I come to an end. Thank you very much for watching this particular topic on conflict resolution. Hope it was very easy on your ears and understanding. Thank you very much.